Chapter 3766. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Cece, what was this? Pang Feiran's face was full of confusion and grievance. How did I harm you? Didn't you agree to kill Ling Han or capture him alive and hand him over to the Pang family? Why didn't you do anything? Why are you acting like a victim instead? Senior Tang Hong, I don't understand what you're saying, he argued weakly. That person, did you see him? Tang Hong pointed at Tang Yang. Yes. Pang Feiran nodded. He had only lost his cultivation, not become blind. Tang Hong was almost angered to death. He said coldly, "You're not blind, are you? Can't you recognize that he's the Tang family's young lord?" What young lord? Pang Feiran had not done his homework beforehand, so how would he know who the so-called young lord was? Tang Yang, the most outstanding member of the Tang family's new generation. He has an innate divine body and was made a marquis by His Majesty at birth. You want me to kidnap and kill someone in front of him? Tang Hong laughed coldly. If he really dared to act, the Tang family would probably be destroyed by the Tang family tomorrow. Pang Feiran was shocked. He did not know Tang Yang, but he definitely knew the Tang family. It was a spirit transformation family, and they were deeply favored by His Majesty. They were shockingly powerful. But this was too inconceivable. How could a mere hostage be together with the Tang family's young lord? How could they take down Ling Han now? On the other side, Liu Xuanyu and the other two were sitting in the room with cold expressions. Tan Zhengjie was also there. Sister, that brat actually became friends with Tang Yang. Tan Zhengjie felt like he was in a dream and could not believe it. Han Bing was very unhappy after being slapped by Tang Yang. Seeing that Tan Zhengjie still wanted to bring it up, she could not help but get angry. She shouted, "Are you stupid? Otherwise, how could we have suffered such humiliation?" Tan Zhengjie wanted to retort, but when he saw Liu Xuanyu's restraining gaze, he obediently shut his mouth. "We're all family, don't fight among yourselves." Liu Xuanyu reached out to stop him. "But that brat has the young lord protecting him. How are we supposed to deal with him?" Zhao Xiao said hatefully. He was still coveting Ling Han's secrets and was extremely unwilling to give up. "Don't worry, I won't let him leave the first natal palace," Liu Xuanyu said confidently. "Oh." Zhao Xiao and the other two looked at her at the same time. That was Tang Yang, the Tang clan's Qilin son, the legitimate little duke. Liu Xuanyu now had to appease the morale of the army, so she revealed some secrets. "It's true that we have no way of contending against Tang Yang, but the first natal residence is managed by the clan office. No matter how long Tang Yang's hand is, he won't be able to reach in." Zhao Xiao and the other two shook their heads. As long as Tang Yang was willing to be a guarantor for Ling Han, it wouldn't be a big deal for Ling Han to move out of the first natal palace. Would the Imperial Clan Court be willing to offend Tang Yang? "Trust me, even if Tang Yang can't save Ling Han, no one can save him," Liu Xuanyu said indifferently. But her eyes were filled with coldness and viciousness. 2 days passed, and Tang Yang came again. But this time, his expression was a little ugly, as if it contained great anger. "What, is the sky falling?" Ling Han laughed. Bang! Tang Yang slammed the table heavily. "There's been a change. I've already arranged for the Imperial Clan Court to send someone over in the next 2 days to announce that you can leave the first natal palace. But today, I actually received a letter from the Imperial Clan Court, talking nonsense about some dog-eat-dog rules. In short, they've changed their mind and don't plan on letting you leave." Ling Han was shocked. Since Tang Yang had said that he had already made arrangements, with his status, he naturally wouldn't brag. This matter was already set in stone, but now the Imperial Clan Court had suddenly changed their mind. Why was this happening? There hadn't been any changes to the royal family, so why would they suddenly do this? There had to be something fishy going on. Liu Xuanyu? Was that possible? She was just a hostage. What right did she have to influence the Imperial Clan Court's decision, even at the expense of offending the little duke, Tang Yang? Strange. I will investigate this matter, but it's just a matter of time. Tang Yang was a little hesitant. Seeing the firm attitude of the Imperial Clan Court, it would not be easy to change their decision. He was only a little marquis, not the emperor of the dynasty, so he could make decisions on his own. That's right. Tang Yang suddenly thought of something and clapped his hands. But after a pause, he immediately shook his head. No, this definitely won't work. What did you think of? Ling Han asked. There's another way that doesn't need to go through the imperial clan court, but the possibility is close to zero, Tang Yang said. Oh, tell me about it. Ling Han smiled. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, it was worth a try. Tang Yang thought about it and said, in another 20 days, it will be His Majesty's 30,000-year-old birthday. For this, the entire nation will be celebrating. His Majesty loves young talents the most, and will hold martial arts competitions for all cultivation levels. If you can stand out, then not only will you leave the imperial clan court, you might even be given an official position. Ling Han didn't care at all whether he was given an official position or not, but being able to leave the first natal palace was a big deal. He smiled slightly. That's a good idea. You're just an alchemist. Martial arts isn't your forte. Tang Yang shook his head. Let's keep this as a backup plan for now. I'll go to the imperial clan court and ask again. I'll see which guy is going against me. He even has to make all sorts of excuses to get me out. All right. Ling Han nodded, but he had already placed his hopes on the martial arts competition. With his strength, wasn't it enough to sweep across the Foundation establishment realm? If it was in the entire universe, he might not even be in the top 10. After all, there were so many monsters in the world. But if it was only in the Azure Dragon Empire and its affiliated forces, it was naturally a small matter. Moreover, he only needed around 10 days to enter the Foundation establishment realm. At that time, even if he were to go against Shi Yi or Myriad Daos, he was confident that he could win. Tang Yang left. He naturally felt that it was very unreliable to let an alchemist fight. Thus, he naturally had to go to the imperial clan court and find out who was playing tricks and overturning the decision that had been made previously. However, one day later, Tang Yang returned again. The imperial clan court has a vice-sect master called Meng Shuchang. He was the one who suppressed the matter of stopping you from leaving the imperial clan court. Ling Han was surprised. This is the first time I've heard of that person's name. It shouldn't be possible to offend him. It's indeed not him. It's Liu Xuanyu, Tang Yang said. Hey! It really is that woman. She has so much power. Ling Han asked in surprise. Hee. Tang Yang revealed a disdainful smile. Meng Shuchang didn't say that it had anything to do with Liu Xuanyu. I sent someone to find out. Old man Meng thought that he did it secretly, but at least half of the people in the imperial clan court knew that he had an affair with Liu Xuanyu. So it was this kind of adulterous relationship. It was more refreshing to read on the phone. Chapter 3768. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han laughed and said excitedly, Let's go to the battlefield. What? Zhao Xiao thought there was something wrong with his ears and looked at Ling Han in shock. Go to the battlefield? You think I can't go all out here and I can't beat you up? I'll grant your wish, he said calmly. Anyways, Ling Han couldn't escape from his palms. The two headed towards the battlefield, and there were definitely people from the hostage manor who saw them and naturally followed. Ling Han was out of place in the hostage manor. Too many people were staring at him, hoping to see a good show. The battlefield wasn't far, and the two soon arrived. The reason why the battlefield could be used to practice and spar wasn't because this place was full of sand and it didn't matter if it was destroyed, but because this place was protected by formations. As long as one didn't surpass the limits, there wouldn't be any power spilling out and affecting the outside world. So if they fought here, they could completely go all out. Ling Han crooked his finger at Zhao Xiao. Grandson, come. Zhao Xiao's eyes were cold, and he said calmly, You will definitely pay for this. Xiao, he charged out, his hands turning into claws that clawed at Ling Han. Endless energy materialized, forming three colors, green, white, and red, that flowed with flowing light, as if they were three ribbons. He was truly enraged. A mere foundation building tier cultivator had actually provoked him time and time again, and because of this Ling Han, He had been given a good thrashing by Tang Yang. This kind of great humiliation obviously could not be recovered from Tang Yang, so he could only take his revenge on Ling Han. Ling Han was very excited. Could a Foundation establishment realm rival a cast cauldron? Even if it was the weakest cast cauldron. He exploded with full power, and an incomparably thick power surged in his body. Then, he unleashed the 3 styles of the war god. The world seemed to have him as the core. Endless energy rolled over. He was the sky, the earth, the core of everything. The first style was unleashed, heading towards Zhao Xiao. Is this guy crazy? He actually fought head-on against a cast cauldron head-on. Hehe, is there a difference if he fights head-on or not? That's true. In front of a cast cauldron, a Foundation establishment stage cultivator is like a fish waiting to be slaughtered. The only difference is how they are slaughtered. Everyone exclaimed. But on the other hand, from the moment Ling Han walked into the battlefield, his fate had already been decided. A crushing defeat Hong, the 2 attacks collided, and boundless light surged, incomparably dazzling. Xiao, a figure flew out. It was Ling Han. As expected, he was no match for Zhao Xiao. This was a shocking disadvantage. However, a scene that made people's scalps go numb appeared. Ling Han had just landed on the ground when he immediately came back to kill. What? This time, everyone was so shocked that their scalps went numb. How could this be? Ling Han was not killed instantly by Zhao Xiao. He actually had the ability to retaliate. Ling Han charged back and unleashed the second form of the 3 strikes of the war god toward Zhao Xiao. Through the first confrontation, Ling Han clearly understood that the difference in strength between him and his opponent was about 3 times. However, he believed that Zhao Xiao did not use his full strength just now because his opponent definitely did not want to kill him. If a cast cauldron used his full strength, any foundational stage cultivator would be smashed into pieces. However, Ling Han believed that with his current strength, he could completely block the attack of a human cauldron realm cultivator. Zhao Xiao's eyes were wide open. Ling Han actually blocked his attack. He quickly came back to his senses. Seeing that Ling Han's attack was even more violent, he went all out and bombarded towards Ling Han. Bang, the 2 clashed for the second time, creating an even more terrifying explosion. Everyone only saw a blinding light, and they could not see anything clearly. Ling Han was knocked back again. He somersaulted in the air and reversed the momentum of his retreat. Then, he charged back for the second time and unleashed the 3rd form of the war god. This form was even more violent. Zhao Xiao was both angry and flushed. He was actually able to fight back and forth with a foundational stage cultivator. If this spread out, no one would say that Ling Han was heaven-defying, but that he was too weak. The weakest cast cauldron in history. Wasn't it? If not, how could he be forced to this point by a foundational stage cultivator? Boom. He also used his ultimate move. Green energy wrapped around his hands, and he counterattacked Ling Han. Chumph, taste the pain. Ling Han's heart moved, and heavenly Dao fire also burned on his fists. If they were to compete in high-level energy, he would not be afraid of who. Boom. The 2 clashed for the 3rd time, but this time, Ling Han did not fly back. When the light dissipated, Ling Han stood proudly and did not retreat even half a step. At the edge of the battlefield, everyone's mouth was wide open, and they could not say a word. It was a draw. A foundational stage cultivator actually tied with a cast cauldron. Who could believe it? Impossible, absolutely impossible. There was only one possibility, and that was that Ling Han was not a foundational stage cultivator, but a cast cauldron. As the person involved, Zhao Xiao knew better than anyone else that Ling Han did not have the slightest trace of a cast cauldron's aura, so he must be a foundational stage cultivator. At first, he was confused and shocked, and then he became extremely fanatical. For a foundational stage cultivator to be this strong, he must have cultivated some kind of powerful secret technique, and if he could obtain it, wouldn't he? His heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was going to jump out of his chest. You used all your ultimate move to barely tie with me. Can you use such an ultimate move forever? Zhao Xiao said coldly. As a cast cauldron, his vision was certainly not ordinary. He could tell at a glance that the three forms of the war god was an ultimate move, and it could not be used forever. Ling Han broke into a grin. Then bring it on. Page. Zhao Xiao did not waste any time and immediately launched a powerful attack. It was true that Ling Han could not use the three forms of the war god in a short period of time. He channeled his astral light screen while using 18 golden eagle claws and immortal crossing finger to fight against Zhao Xiao. Honestly speaking, both the 18 claws of the golden eagle and the celestial crossing finger were far too ordinary. They were completely unable to make up for the gap in cultivation level between Ling Han and Zhao Xiao. However, with the addition of the screen of starlight, Ling Han managed to escape unscathed. This layer of defense was truly powerful, and Zhao Xiao's attack could not break through it in one move. As long as it could not be broken in one move, with the support of Ling Han's abundant secret force, he could completely repair it in an instant. In theory, he could completely exhaust Zhao Xiao to death. 10 moves, 30 moves, 100 moves. Everyone felt like they were in a dream. Although Ling Han was at a disadvantage, they could also see that Ling Han was indeed a foundational stage cultivator, and his life energy was completely different from Zhao Xiao's. Was there really such a powerful foundational stage cultivator? Impossible. A cast cauldron can crush a foundational stage cultivator. This is the iron law. Yes, this is an unchanging truth. It cannot be broken. So, Zhao Xiao must be too weak. Maybe he used too much strength on our captain yesterday and is out of energy today. That's possible. Everyone knew that Ling Han was strong, but there was no way he could be strong enough to match a cast cauldron. So, Zhao Xiao must be too weak. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3769. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han activated his ocular sorcery. Instantly, Zhao Xiao's attack was full of openings. However, seeing through a flaw and exploiting it were two different things. The cast cauldron's attack was too fast, and the openings were fleeting. How could he exploit them? Such openings would be fatal in a battle of the same level, but the gap between the two was too wide. Even if Ling Han saw the openings, he wouldn't be able to take advantage of them. However, this was still useful. Ling Han had a panoramic view of Zhao Xiao's attack pattern. Every time someone attacked, there would be a sign. Every muscle tensed and relaxed, there would be a sign. For example, if you wanted to kick, you had to tighten the muscles in your waist and legs. More of your mystical power would gather in your legs. Using ocular sorcery, after a few more moves, Zhao Xiao's attack became completely transparent to Ling Han. Ling Han seemed to have the ability to predict the future. As soon as Zhao Xiao moved, he would be able to react in advance. Just like that, Ling Han slowly turned the tide. Even though it wasn't a complete tie, he was no longer at a disadvantage. Everyone was dumbfounded. Were they going to see a great show where a foundational stage cultivator defeated a cast cauldron? Zhao Xiao was incredibly gloomy. He really felt that Ling Han was like a roundworm in his stomach. No matter what powerful move he unleashed, Ling Han would always be able to react in advance, causing his attacks to be futile. In fact, Ling Han would even be able to seize the opportunity to counterattack. This fight was too depressing. It was driving him crazy. Almost there. Ling Han saw the right time and finally used his trump card. Heavenly Pattern Jade, go. Xiao, the Heavenly Pattern Jade had already been compressed to about 2 kilograms. It was incredibly light. Propelled by his powerful telekinesis, it instantly reached 40 times the speed of sound and blasted towards Zhao Xiao. Too fast, 40 times the speed of sound. Even the cast cauldron's speed was only about 30 times the speed of sound. There was no way he could dodge. Of course, Zhao Xiao wasn't afraid. Why would he need to dodge an attack from a foundational stage cultivator? He also activated his telekinesis, which turned into a giant net and wrapped around the Heavenly Pattern Jade layer by layer. However, his expression immediately changed. That was because his telekinesis net was like using an ordinary fishing net to catch a crocodile. How could it possibly block the terrifying force that was charging at him? It was like a hot knife through butter. It was simply unparalleled. This is a telekinesis artifact. Zhao Xiao shouted in his heart. He didn't dare to take it and quickly dodged to the side. But how could the heavenly pattern jade dodge at 40 times the speed of sound? Peng, just as he dodged, the heavenly pattern jade had already struck his waist, and there was a dazzling radiance. Ling Han was slightly surprised, because the heavenly pattern jade did not manage to blast half of Zhao Xiao's waist off. Instead, it was blocked by a layer of light, and then it slid sideways, crashing into the sandpit. He quickly used his telekinesis to grab the heavenly rune jade. He didn't expect Zhao Xiao to have a treasure on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape the fate of having half his body blown off. This was even if Ling Han didn't want to kill anyone. Otherwise, he wouldn't have deliberately missed. But killing the envoy of another nation was naturally a serious crime, unless he wanted to fall out with them directly. Zhao Xiao's body was trembling. He had a secret treasure on him that would activate when he was in life-threatening danger and turn danger into safety. However, this secret treasure could only be used 3 times, and he treasured it very much. But who would have thought that he would actually use it once while holed up in the hostage residence? Moreover, it was actually used on a Foundation establishment cultivator. This, if word got out, he would become the joke of the ages. I really didn't expect you to actually have a telekinesis artifact, he said through clenched teeth. His heart was bleeding. He didn't gain anything and even made a fool of himself. In the end, he had lost the number of uses of the secret treasure. Ling Han raised the heavenly rune jade slightly. What, you want to do it again? Zhao Xiao's expression changed drastically, and he was filled with wariness. Not only was Ling Han's strength incomparable to that of a Foundation establishment cultivator, but his eyesight was also too terrifying. It was as if he had no secrets to speak of in front of his opponent, and his every move was known to him like the back of his hand. Coupled with the threat of the heavenly rune jade, he was no match for him at all. If he continued fighting, not only would he not be able to subdue his opponent, he would instead use up all his secret treasures. He suddenly turned around, and Xiao, his figure leaped, and he had already left the battlefield. He didn't even leave behind a single word of courtesy. Faced with a Foundation establishment cultivator, no matter what he said, it would only be embarrassing. Ling Han smiled calmly, turned around, and saw Liu Xuanyu. Her expression was rather ugly, because she had exhausted all her means and thought that she had already controlled Ling Han, but she had forgotten the most crucial factor, and that was Ling Han's own strength. Originally, there was no need to consider this at all. He was only a Foundation establishment cultivator. How could he be that strong? But such strange things did exist in this world. This Foundation establishment cultivator was really nature-defying, and could even scare away a cast cauldron. Although Zhao Xiao was also only at the human tripod realm, and had only formed 2 cauldron legs, she was also only at the human tripod realm. One had to know that she was only at the human tripod realm. Although she had cultivated 3 legs and was slightly better than Zhao Xiao, it was still limited. What could she do? She had originally thought that Ling Han was a bird in a cage, but now he was a beast in a cage. Once a beast in a cage decided to fight to the death, it would not be a joke. For the first time, she felt that the situation had spiraled out of control. Ling Han only gave her a meaningful smile, then swaggered off. Now, he was full of confidence. His individual battle prowess was already at the level of a cast cauldron. Although he could not be said to be a match for a cast cauldron, he would not be instantly killed by a sneak attack from such a powerful cultivator. As long as he had time to react, he could use the heavenly flames to kill his enemy, or use imminent skyline to escape. Everyone watched as Ling Han left. They knew that the first natal residents now did not only have the 3 big shots, Liu Xuanyu, Han Bing, and Zhao Xiao, but also Ling Han. Although he had not reached the cast cauldron level, he was already not weak. Furthermore, once Ling Han broke through to the cast cauldron level, who could match him? This was the scariest part. Everyone looked at each other. They all felt that they needed to change their way of thinking. They could not follow Liu Xuanyu and the others to the end. It was obvious that following Ling Han would have a better future. Immediately, many people quietly slipped away. When Ling Han returned to his room, he saw that there were 7 people who had quietly arrived. Openly and covertly, They expressed that they wanted to follow him. He did not accept, nor did he reject. He only said that he would make a decision after seeing their performance. He had no interest in such opportunists, but there was no harm in using them to disgust Liu Xuanyu. What Ling Han was most concerned about was the competition that would take place in a few days. As the days passed, Liu Xuanyu and the others remained very silent. Perhaps they knew that they could not do anything to Ling Han, so they were thinking of a more sinister plan. However, the 30,000th birthday of the current emperor had finally arrived. The imperial capital was in a state of jubilation. Tang Yang personally came to bring Ling Han out. With him by his side, even if Meng Shuchang came, he would still dare to bring him out. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3770. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Cixi Ling Han and Tang Yang left the hostage residence and went to the competition venue. Tang Yang had already registered for him earlier. Thus, Ling Han only needed to report his name and check his cultivation level before the competition could begin. On the surface, the Azure Dragon Empire was a cult masterclass force, but there was a supremacy overseeing it in secret. In a certain sense, it could even be compared with the Gold Origin Sacred Land. The difference was that the Azure Dragon Empire had too few supremacies, only one. Furthermore, they didn't have a saint artifact overseeing it and couldn't be immortal. Look, which force would dare to invade a sacred land? Regardless of whether there was a saint overseeing it, a sacred land was always so high up and inviolable. This was the foundation. The Azure Dragon Empire was powerful enough. Not only did the various subsidiary planets send their important figures over to congratulate them, but even many forces from other star regions sent their envoys over. The Shadow Moon Empire also paused their invasion and even sent their envoys over. On the surface, it was obviously for the birthday, but in reality, it was to find out the situation of the Azure Dragon Empire's supremacy, how serious his injuries were, and how much combat strength he had left. If this supremacy was already at his limit, then the Shadow Moon Empire would increase their offensive after they returned and annex more of the Azure Dragon Empire's resource stars. Don't think that there were 9 days for the selection. In reality, there were too many people participating, and they all wanted to show their faces in front of Meng Yonghua. Thus, the competition was still very intense, and there were too many people who had to be eliminated. The first round was a group fight, and 90% of the people would be eliminated. The rules were very simple. 10 people would form a group, and only one person would be able to walk out. Once the competition started, Ling Han pounced out like a ferocious tiger. Ayo! Tang Yang couldn't help but hold his forehead. You're an alchemist, why do you have to be so fierce? Can't you keep a low profile and let others fight to the death? Finally, you can take advantage of the situation. Now that you're the first one to rush out, you've naturally become the bird that sticks out. Who else should they hit if not you? As expected, the other 9 people were originally on guard against each other, and no one dared to act rashly. However, once Ling Han rushed out like this, he naturally became the target for everyone. Everyone attacked one after another, blasting at Ling Han. Ling Han laughed heartily, and with a sweep of his leg, peng peng peng, the force swept past, like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. The 9 people were all kicked away, like flowers scattered by a celestial maiden, falling from the sky. Not a single one of them was able to get up. It was just one leg, and everything was settled. Damn, Tang Yang couldn't help but stare. If it was him, even if he suppressed his cultivation level to the extreme foundational realm, he would still be able to defeat all 9 of them easily. After all, with so many foundational realm cultivators participating, how many geniuses could there be? But Ling Han was different. He was an alchemist, and he was destined to become a high-grade Earth-grade Grandmaster in the future. How could it be possible for someone to have both dazzling talent in the Tao of alchemy and sparkling brilliance in the martial art? He realized that he had underestimated Ling Han's value. After Ling Han won, he had about 10 minutes to rest before starting the next battle. This time, it was not a group fight, but a one-on-one fight. His opponent had also just emerged from the 10-man battle. Tang Yang was no longer worried, and he just watched quietly. As expected, Ling Han was invincible, and no one was his match at all. Usually, he would finish off his opponent in 5 or 6 moves, and even the most troublesome opponent would not be able to withstand 10 moves from him. This was Ling Han purposely going easy. Otherwise, if he went all out, it was estimated that only about 1,000 foundational realm cultivators in the entire star web would be able to withstand 1 move from him, and 100 people would be able to withstand 10 moves from him. Only about 10 people would be able to truly compete with him. But Ling Han believed that he would definitely be the one to win in the end. After the day's battles, Tang Yang did not send Ling Han back to the hostage manor, but to his lord manor. As the little lord, he had his own manor. Although it was far from being comparable to the Tang family, it still occupied a large area and was dazzling with gold. "It's fine if you don't go back," Ling Han said with a smile. "It's fine, I don't believe that Meng Shuchang would dare to come to my place to ask for him," Tang Yang said domineeringly. He had already sent people to inform the Jiao Yuanfu that Ling Han would be a guest at his manor tonight. On the second day, after Ling Han finished cultivating, he began to battle again. Sweep, sweep, sweep. No one was a match for Ling Han, even if as time passed, the opponents he met became more and more powerful. 9 days passed in a flash, and Ling Han also stood out and became one of the contestants in the finals. And his opponent was Wang Yafi. "You will meet your opponent tomorrow," Tang Yang said with a serious expression. Tang Yang said solemnly, "This Wang Yafi is not simple. Although he doesn't have an innate divine body, he has fused with the remains of an ancient almighty. His combat power is rather terrifying and is at least comparable to a 6th-rate divine body. Also, he has been suppressing his realm and did not break through. He wants to become famous in one battle at Her Majesty's birthday banquet and soar into the sky." Although the Wang family is only a true self-realm force, they have clearly prepared for this day for a long time. "Even if I appear, they will not give me face." Ling Han smiled. "It's fine. I am worried that the opponent is not strong enough. That would be so boring." Tang Yang was speechless. After a while, he said, "That guy has been stuck at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm for at least 30 years. It is not that he does not have the ability to break through, but that he has been suppressing it. Moreover, the Wang family must have been preparing for this since 50 years ago, so they must have prepared many powerful artifacts for Wang Yafi. Also, the recordings of your battles these past few days must have been thoroughly studied by them." Ling Han could not help but laugh. He had been fighting casually these past few days because his opponents were too weak. He did not need to go all out. "You still have the mood to laugh." Tang Yang shook his head. Her Majesty is very competitive. In his eyes, second place is **T. Only the winner is worthy of praise. Therefore, even if you fought hard all the way to the finals, losing is still **T. Ling Han patted Tang Yang's shoulder. "I said don't worry. Don't worry. It will be fine. Trust me." Tang Yang thought about it. "Wait for me. I will go back to the family and see if I can find 2 powerful secret treasures for you." He left as soon as he said he would, in a hurry. At midnight, Tang Yang finally returned and stuffed a sword and a cloak into Ling Han's hands. "This is the star-shattering sword. It is extremely sharp. After you activate it with your secret power, you will be able to release a sharp sword aura that is also indestructible." Tang Yang introduced it to him. "Also, this is the Blood Moon cloak. It was personally refined by the Tang family's elder ancestor. It can activate the Blood Moon shield. Even a cast tripod realm martial artist will need some time to break it. However, the Blood Moon cloak needs to be infused with power first. It can only activate the shield twice at most. Take it easy." Ling Han did not need these 2 treasures at all, but since Tang Yang was so kind, he did not want to refuse. He accepted it and said, "Okay. Reading on the phone is more refreshing." Chapter 3772. BQG6, CC BQG6. CC everyone hissed. This guy was too cowardly. The battle hadn't even begun and he was already showing weakness. Everyone hissed. This guy was too cowardly. The battle hadn't even begun and he was already showing weakness. On the high platform, Meng Yonghua also revealed a displeased expression. He had been an iron-blooded killer all his life and hated this kind of spineless people the most. Moreover, this guy was actually a coward at his birthday banquet, which made him want to kill him. Ling Han said slowly, "I'm afraid I'll go all out and accidentally kill you." Everyone was stunned and then burst into laughter. This was too funny. It turned out that this guy wasn't a coward but had buried a burden. Meng Yonghua also revealed a smile and said to the person beside him, "Young people nowadays are quite interesting." The person beside him was Tang Lei, the current leader of the Tang clan and Tang Yang's grandfather. To be able to sit next to Meng Yonghua at this time, the Tang clan and Tang Lei were clearly favored. "Your Majesty is right." Tang Lei smiled, but in his heart, he was ridiculing. Who was it just now that said that after the battle, he would drag Ling Han out and kill him? Below, Wang Yafi revealed a cold expression. This guy actually dared to steal his limelight. The Wang clan and him, how long had they prepared for today's battle, and how much had he suffered for it? He should be the only star and monopolize everyone's attention. "Damned guy," he said in a low voice. Xiao, his figure flashed and he charged toward Ling Han. This detestable guy, die. He gave up on the idea of feigning an appearance that the two of them were evenly matched. Only after he had captured everyone's attention did he defeat Ling Han. Boom, his entire body emitted blazing light, and a large number of symbols bloomed. Some were complete, some were broken, but the strange thing was that the broken symbols looked even more terrifying than the complete symbols, full of shocking destructive power. On the platform, Meng Yonghua also nodded. This kid from the Wang clan is quite diligent. It's not easy to cultivate such battle prowess at the foundational stage. "Hehe, Your Majesty, you praise him too much." Tang Lei laughed. "If it was you in the past, you would be 100 times stronger than this kid from the Wang clan." Meng Yonghua couldn't help but stroke his beard and smile. This flattery was very satisfying. Boom, Wang Yafi's attack arrived. Ling Han smiled calmly, and casually threw out a punch to meet the incoming attack. He didn't need to use any immortal techniques, he just used the most ordinary and simple punch. Peng, Wang Yafi was instantly sent flying back at an even faster speed than when he had arrived. Moreover, a large number of symbols exploded one after another, as if they had been lit up with fireworks. At first, the whole place was filled with cheering for Wang Yafi. After all, he was a genuine citizen of the imperial capital, and Ling Han was only a hostage from another planet. Thus, when they saw this scene, everyone's mouths were half open, and they were completely dumbfounded. That was Wang Yafi. He was actually sent flying by a single punch. One had to know that Ling Han did not seem to have used any sort of immortal art. Just a simple punch was enough to send Wang Yafi flying. How could anyone accept this? "You." Wang Yafi turned around and steadied himself. He glared fiercely at Ling Han, revealing an expression of intense anger. He hadn't been injured by this blow, but it was even more unbearable than if he had been seriously injured. Under the gazes of the crowd, especially with Meng Yonghua watching from above, he had been sent flying with a single punch, completely embarrassing himself. "How embarrassing. You deserve to die." He roared loudly, and directly drew out his trump card. A white jade bottle had already appeared in his hand. Immortal fallen silver bottle. Xiao, he only felt his vision blur, and then he saw that Ling Han was already standing in front of him. He paled in shock, and was just about to draw out the bottle to store Ling Han away, but he felt that his hand was empty. "Yi, where's the bottle? How do I use this?" Ling Han asked Wang Yafi as he fiddled with the immortal fallen silver bottle that he had just stolen. F***CK, when was it taken away? Wang Yafi paled in shock. The treasure in his hand had actually been taken away by someone, and he hadn't even realized it. Just how great was the gap between their strength? How was this possible? He had made so many preparations for today, and he had not let him down in the final battle. How could he have encountered such a freak? On the viewing platform, everyone was also stunned. Why did it feel like Wang Yafi was like a child in front of Ling Han? He wasn't a match for him at all. He had been sent flying with a single punch, and his treasure had been taken away with a single grab. How could he fight back? "Give it back to me," Wang Yafi shouted loudly. I can hear you, but you don't have to be so loud. Ling Han smiled as he continued to fiddle with the bottle. Store. Wang Yafi revealed a sinister expression. Did Ling Han think that this bottle could only be used in his hands? No, he had long since fused a strand of his divine sense into the bottle, so he could activate it with a single thought. Instantly, a wave of light surged out of the bottle, enveloping Ling Han. Wang Yafi laughed loudly. As long as he was enveloped by this light, he would be sucked into the bottle. There were terrifying interweaving formation patterns that could directly melt him into a puddle of blood. What are you laughing at? Ling Han's voice traveled over. Child, are you stupid? Why are you laughing for no reason at all? What? Wang Yafi revealed a horrified expression. Why hadn't Ling Han been sucked into the bottle? You really disappoint me. Ling Han shook his head. Pa. He squeezed hard, and the bottle was forcefully smashed into pieces. This wasn't even close to the power of a casting cauldron, it was at most equivalent to a 4-star Foundation Establishment realm martial artist. 4-star combat strength was already very impressive, which was why Tang Yang said that this was the power of a casting cauldron. There were only a handful of 4-star geniuses in the Azure Dragon Empire. Is there anything else? Ling Han casually threw the broken pieces of the bottle on the ground while looking at Wang Yafi with anticipation. What kind of mockery was this? Wang Yafi roared out and took a few steps back, pulling an absolute distance away from Ling Han. He then took out a fan and poured his mystic force into it, causing it to immediately emit a black light. He raised his hand and wanted to fan at Ling Han. Who would have thought that there would be a blur in front of him, and another person would appear? You. His heart surged with an ominous feeling. As expected, the fan in his hand was gone. This shouldn't be difficult to use, right? Ling Han also poured in his mystic force, and the fan that had just dimmed immediately lit up again. Then, he lightly fanned at Wang Yafi. Peng, Wang Yafi was sent flying again. The strong wind turned into numerous small blades that sliced at Wang Yafi's body. In an instant, his clothes were all turned into shreds, and there were also innumerable wounds on his body. Thankfully, because of these wounds, his body was covered in blood, and some important parts were blocked. Yo, this fan is quite powerful. Ling Han put the fan away. He didn't need it, but he could leave it for the Empress, Hu Niu, and the others. Is there anything else? He asked again. Give it back to me. Wang Yafi's face turned green. Do you think I'm a boy who gives away money? He charged over without any regard for anything. There were patterns on his body that were glowing, making him look like a demon god. Reading on a phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3773. A Beautiful Romance. BQG 6. CC Yafi. Yafi has cultivated to the 4th level of the blood god Dao. An old man in the stands exclaimed in surprise. He was the head of the Wang family, Wang Haowen. His face was originally as dark as black water, but after seeing this scene, it suddenly blossomed with joy. The Wang family was neither strong nor weak on Moonlight Planet, and there had been no improvement for tens of thousands of years. When it came to Wang Haowen's generation, he worked hard to change the situation, and when Wang Yafi was born, he felt that his dream could be realized. Wang Yafi had amazing talent in martial art and endless potential. For him, the Wang family had paid an unknown price, almost going bankrupt, to obtain the bone of an ancient powerhouse, and then asked an almighty to fuse the bone with Wang Yafi, making it a part of him. Such a huge price was not in vain. Wang Yafi had perfectly fused with the bone and obtained a secret technique called the Blood God Dao, which was the immortal technique cultivated by the original owner of the bone. The Blood God Dao had a total of 36 levels, and with each level mastered, one's battle prowess would double or even more. But even with Wang Yafi's amazing talent in martial art, he had only mastered the first 3 levels after so many years. And for cultivating the Blood God Dao, cultivating the first 4 levels in Foundation Establishment was the most perfect. The reason why Wang Yafi hadn't broken through to the Cast Cauldron realm was because of the competition this time, and also because he hadn't cultivated to the 4th level of the Blood God Dao. Of course, he definitely couldn't say the latter to others. Now, Wang Yafi had actually broken through and cultivated to the 4th level of the Blood God Dao. This not only gave him hope of turning the tables, but also allowed him to cultivate to the peak of foundation establishment. With this double happiness, Wang Haowen was definitely overjoyed. He looked at Ling Han coldly. This kid was dead for sure. In the arena, Wang Yafi was also stunned. He had broken through in his rage, and even he didn't realize it. When he suddenly reacted, he even stopped attacking. Boom, the power in his body surged, making him feel unbelievably powerful. Ling Han, Ling Ri, they were all slapped to death with a single slap. "Mph, I really have to thank you," Wang Yafi said indifferently. Now, he felt that everything was back in his control. Ling Han smiled. "You keep giving me gifts, and you even want to thank me. Child, you must have been hit in the head. I'm sorry. You can be stubborn now, but when I dismember you piece by piece, you will regret it." Wang Yafi roared. He grabbed his left wrist with his right hand and suddenly pulled. His entire left hand, including the bones in his arm, was pulled out by him. Strangely, there was not a single trace of blood spurting out from the broken wrist. Moreover, the bone was as white as jade and strangely shaped like a sword. Not only was it longer than a normal small bone, but it was also longer. This was the bone of a powerhouse that he had fused with. After so many years, he had actually cultivated it into a ritual implement. Moreover, it had completely fused with his body and became his life ritual implement. It was much easier to use than ordinary ritual implements. This is the Bloodbone Sword. I refined it with my own essence blood. No one has ever seen it before. Wang Yafi said proudly, "You are the first person to see it, and also the first person to have your blood drunk by it." Ling Han sighed. "You really have a screw loose. There are at least tens of thousands of people here. Could it be that they all saw this sword at the same time? It's not just the two of us. Sigh, your intelligence is worrying." Wang Yafi was exasperated. At this time, Ling Han still wanted to be so talkative. He gritted his teeth and said, "When the flesh on your body is cut off piece by piece, I hope you can still be so talkative." He raised the Bloodbone Sword high up. Black chi surged out of his body and boiled, making him look like a demon god. Ling Han smiled. So close, so far away, he instantly appeared in front of Wang Yafi. Then, he gently reached out and grabbed the Bloodbone Sword. Wang Yafi was stunned. How did the sword get snatched? How did you freaking get so fast? I've already broken through during the battle and reached the 4th level of the Blood God Dao. My power has increased by a shocking amount. Why didn't I even see how Ling Han got close and attacked? Disgusting. Ling Han wanted to study the bone sword, but the hilt was actually a hand, and the fingers were still moving, desperately trying to break free. This made Ling Han feel extremely disgusted. He flung the bone sword out. Everyone's faces twitched when they saw this. They felt an indescribable pain in the balls. At this moment, Wang Yafi must have 10,000 curses running through his heart. He had clearly used his ultimate move and was about to explode, but in the end, in front of Ling Han, it was like child's play. This was not a confrontation on the same level at all. It was like an aggressive child taking out all kinds of toy weapons to threaten an adult. But in the eyes of the adult, this was just playing house, a joke. Shouldn't the finals be evenly matched and extremely exciting? Why was it so one-sided now? In the stands, Wang Haowen looked like he had eaten a fly. He was extremely uncomfortable. If he could, he would definitely rush into the arena and tear Ling Han apart. How could this be? Their Wang clan had invested so many resources in Wang Yafi, but in the end, he couldn't even be called a match for Ling Han. He had become a complete joke. This was not because Wang Yafi was weak, but because Ling Han was freakishly strong. How could there be such a monster in the world? Were the heavens trying to stop the rise of the Wang clan? Wang Yafi roared, and even took out his immortal foundation. It was a square silver stone with ancient patterns on it. He used the immortal foundation to smash toward Ling Han, his expression solemn. The immortal foundation was the core of foundation establishment. Once it was damaged, the martial artist's cultivation level would also fall, and they might even be slashed back to the mortal realm. Thus, taking out the immortal foundation to fight was also a martial artist's last resort. Ling Han coldly punched out, landing a punch on the immortal foundation. Peng! The immortal foundation was instantly sent flying. Wang Yafi also seemed to be heavily injured, his face extremely pale. He was one with the immortal foundation. Without even looking, it was obvious that a few cracks had already appeared on the immortal foundation. What a terrifying fist force! The firmness of the immortal foundation was comparable to the immortal foundation of the same level. Ling Han's fist could cause cracks to appear on the immortal foundation. What kind of terrifying strength was this? What kind of terrifying firmness was this? He gritted his teeth, summoned the immortal foundation back, and attacked Ling Han again. He lived his entire life for this day. If he couldn't become number one, then he would rather die a tragic death. Ling Han secretly shook his head. He somewhat admired Wang Yafi's determination, but to actually build one's life on someone else's praise, this was too stupid. Moreover, Wang Yafi wasn't a good person. He kept saying that he would kill him and cut off his flesh, so he couldn't sympathize with him at all. He punched again, adding a bit more force. Peng! Wang Yafi and his immortal foundation were sent flying. This time, he could no longer get up. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3774. A Beautiful Romance. BQG 6. CC Such an exciting battle, too exciting. The MC shouted. Now, the first winner of the day has finally appeared, and that is Ling Han. Following his hysterical roar, thunderous cheers echoed from the spectators' stand. Ling Han's performance is excellent, and we are pleased. We shall confer him the title of Red Commandant, serving in the Sky Marshal Mansion. An extremely loud voice echoed from the spectators' stand. It was the Azure Dragon Empire's emperor, Meng Yonghua. Ling Han's mouth curled up into a smile. He was conferred the title of Commandant and serving in the imperial household. Naturally, he had a reason to leave the hostage residence. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." On the spectators' stand, Meng Yonghua revealed a smear of displeasure. Tang Lei, who was at the side, quickly said, "Your Majesty, the Black North nation is primitive and uncivilized. When the citizens see the emperor, they all have to bow with cupped hands." Meng Yonghua finally understood and laughed, as expected of a citizen outside of civilization. In the future, the Black North nation will be able to bathe in the imperial grace of our empire. It will definitely be gradually civilized and not so primitive. Tang Lei laughed. He knew that Tang Yang and Ling Han were on good terms, and Ling Han was indeed worth befriending. Thus, he repeatedly helped Ling Han get out of trouble. Ha ha ha. Meng Yonghua laughed loudly and appeared to be very happy. On the spectators' stand, there were people who were shouting excitedly, but there were also people who were extremely disappointed. They were betting on how long Wang Yafi would take to win in the underground gambling house. They didn't expect that not only did Wang Yafi not win, but he also lost so miserably. There was also Ji Shuang, whose face was so black that it was about to drip water. He originally hoped that Wang Yafi would kill Ling Han and take revenge for him, but who would have thought that Wang Yafi would be so weak? What number 1 Foundation Establishment Realm Expert? Simply bullsh *T. On the imperial seats, Meng Yongqing's expression was also very unpleasant. He naturally recognized Ling Han. Back then, in order to fight for the Buddha race's opportunity, he fought with Ling Han and was nearly killed. Had it not been for his subordinates who desperately blocked for him, he would already be dead. Of course, he wouldn't admit that he was the one who sucked the servants dry of their mystic power. This kid is really audacious. He actually dares to come here. He couldn't wait to go down and kill Ling Han, but what kind of place was this? Moreover, Ling Han had been personally conferred the title of nobility by Meng Yonghua. If he dared to make a move, losing the right to be the heir was a small matter. If it was serious, he might even be sentenced to death. With Meng Yonghua's temperamental nature, this was not impossible. Therefore, he could only endure it for now. However, since he had discovered Ling Han, he would not let Ling Han have an easy time in the following days, until he died. This battle had ended, but Meng Yonghua's birthday banquet naturally wasn't held. There was still the final battle of the cast tripod realm and the activities of the envoys from the various kingdoms. In short, it would at least last until midnight. Ling Han was fine, so he returned to the lounge. After a long time, Tang Yang finally came to find him. "I didn't know you were so strong." He punched Ling Han's chest. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? I was worried for so long." Ling Han laughed heartily. "I kept telling you not to worry, but you just had to worry blindly." Fine. It is my fault, okay?" Tang Yang laughed. His mood was also very good. Ling Han obtained first place and was even conferred an official position by the emperor. Would the imperial clan residents still dare to control Ling Han now? "You are going to take up your official post tomorrow. Do you need me to send you off?" he asked. Ling Han shook his head. "You, the young marquis, are not an idle person, so I will not trouble you with everything." "All right, I will look for you for tea later." Tang Yang nodded. Since Ling Han was already out of the hostage residence and was a free man, it was easy for him to meet up. After the birthday banquet ended, Ling Han returned to the hostage residence. Just as he entered the door, he saw many people congratulating him. It turned out that the news of him being conferred an official by Meng Yonghua had already spread throughout the imperial capital. Even this hostage residence wasn't an exception. Awesome. Look, everyone was still a hostage, but Ling Han had already been conferred an official position by the current emperor. The difference was as great as the heavens. This kind of person must be on good terms. Not mentioning anything else, it would be good to have a few more days of freedom. On the contrary, the expressions of Liu Xuanyu and the others were ugly. They wished they could skin Ling Han alive. How could they have imagined that even the imperial clan residents could not stop Ling Han's rise? Now, they could only sit and watch Ling Han become stronger and stronger. An alchemy genius who could refine the foundation transformation pill, his future prospects were limitless. Ling Han swept his gaze over these few people. He did not even deign to stay. How could he treat these few people as his opponents? He stayed for a night. In the morning of the second day, he first cultivated for a while. Then, he walked out proudly. Lord Ling, the guards at the door naturally would not stop him. Instead, they greeted him in a fawning manner. This young man was really too incredible. Only how many days had it been, and he had already walked out of the hostage residence. In the future, he might even be conferred the title of Marquis. Ling Han smiled faintly and left with large strides. Behind him, Liu Xuanyu, Zhao Xiao, Han Bing, and Tan Zhengjie were all staring at him. Their expressions were so cold that it was about to drip water. "What do we do? Are we just going to watch as he grows stronger?" Tan Zhengjie said unwillingly. "If you have the ability, go assassinate him at night and perish together with him," Han Bing said sarcastically. "Didn't you always say that you would sacrifice your life for Sister Liu? Isn't this an extremely good opportunity?" Tan Zhengjie's face immediately fell. Firstly, he did not want to die. Secondly, even if he risked his life, he was completely not a match for Ling Han. He would only be sending himself to his death. "All of you, speak less," Liu Xuanyu said unhappily. "I will definitely think of a way. I definitely will not let him run away like this." Zhao Xiao and Han Bing looked at each other and shook their heads inwardly. Ling Han was already clearly out of control. Could it be that you want to go to the Heavenly Marshal House to sleep with him again? The Heavenly Marshal House was the department in charge of the imperial capital's security. The imperial capital was very big, so the Heavenly Marshal House had set up many branches, each managing a small area. Ling Han was appointed as the Red Commandant by the Emperor. This was only a small 8th grade official position. He was not even qualified to be a leader in the Heavenly Marshal House branch. He was assigned to a branch in the Dian district. The head of this branch was a 7th-rank military officer named Yang Lasheng. After meeting with Ling Han, he appointed him as a team leader of the branch. However, because no team leader had resigned previously, Ling Han's current team leader was actually a commander without any subordinates under him. "There's a murder case in Long Lane. I'll leave it to you." Yang Lusheng threw over a file. This was his first day on the job, and he already had a mission. Ling Han did not decline. He took the file and immediately flipped through it. A murder case has occurred in the imperial capital. The nature of the case is very bad. I'll give you 10 days. If you can't catch the murderer by then, you can resign. Yang Lusheng set a deadline for Ling Han. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3776. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Cisa, this new team leader was so fierce. Really? Of course it's true. I have an uncle who works in the headquarters. During lunch today, he told me personally that this fierce person has been assigned to our branch. F***CK. These soldiers all shook their heads. It looked like their team leaders were going to be out of luck. In the field, Ling Han smiled. All of you, come at me together. You really know how to show off. But since you've said so, I'll grant you your wish. These team leaders did not care about any sense of honor. They had originally wanted to teach Ling Han a lesson. As for what methods they had to use, they did not care at all. Besides, wasn't this Ling Han's own request? Their faces were all smiles, but they had already spread out in formation, ready to attack at any time. Go! Someone shouted. Immediately, the 13 team leaders attacked at the same time, attacking Ling Han. Ling Han stood proudly without moving. Pretentious people die faster, these 13 team leaders all said in their hearts, but their attacks did not slow down at all. Then it's all up to you. In the instant that the attacks were about to reach him, Ling Han's mind moved. Buzz, a wave of killing intent blasted out. Bam, 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 bam. This aura surged out like an avalanche. The 13 people involuntarily paused and then fell head first to the ground. Fart. The soldiers watching from all sides all opened their mouths wide, completely stunned. No way, 13 team leaders had fallen just like that. They knew that Ling Han was strong. He had even defeated Wang Yafi. But without a single move, the 13 team leaders seemed to have been bewitched and had fallen on their own. Damn, this was too shocking. There was a smile on Ling Han's face, and he walked casually. However, every step he took landed on the backs of those captains, causing them to groan in pain. So heavy, even their bones were groaning. They were shocked. How could Ling Han be so strong? Did you have fun sparring? Ling Han asked. Happy my ass. Was there anyone who could be happy lying on the ground and being stepped on? But when they saw the dangerous expression on Ling Han's face, how could they dare to say that? They hurriedly nodded. Do you still want to play? Ling Han asked again. The 13 captains hurriedly shook their heads in unison. Ling Han nodded and walked out of the training field. He was very busy and had to find the murderer. There were still 2 auras that he hadn't eliminated, but it was getting late. Ling Han decided to call it a day and continue tomorrow. He didn't return to the hostage manor and stayed in the branch manor. In terms of conditions, the hostage residence was actually slightly better, but no matter how beautiful the prison was, how could it compare to the air of freedom? The night passed. Ling Han woke up early and faced the morning sun to cultivate. Not long after he finished his work, the mansion suddenly became noisy. He ran out to take a look, but his face sank, because last night, another person died, and his blood was sucked dry. Where? He hurriedly went up and asked. Elegant Flower Village, number 3 to number 4. Ling Han immediately moved out and headed towards Elegant Flower Village. He practically ran at full speed and quickly arrived at the scene of the murder. The surroundings had already been sealed off by the guards, prohibiting unauthorized people from entering. Ling Han walked in and saw a corpse lying on the ground, his face filled with fear. There were 2 rows of teeth marks on the neck of the corpse. They were very deep, but they shouldn't be fatal. So, the cause of death was still excessive blood loss. He took out the jade toad and extracted the auras again, then eliminated them one by one. There were originally only 2 suspects left, and after a comparison, there was only 1 left. Ling Han let the jade toad start tracking, and this toad immediately moved, facing one direction. You, follow me. Ling Han pointed at 3 people. The 3 hurriedly followed. Ling Han had taken down all 13 captains yesterday, and instantly established a strong reputation. So, they did as he said without thinking. Every time Ling Han turned a corner, he would use the jade toad to reposition himself. The 3 guards saw Ling Han fiddling with the toad, and were very puzzled. What was he playing at, and why did he want them to follow him? About half an hour later, Ling Han stopped in front of a very small and run-down courtyard. The direction that the jade toad was pointing at was this courtyard. Ling Han walked up and knocked on the door, but no one responded. He knocked again, but still no one answered. Ling Han released his divine sense and scanned the area. There was no one in the courtyard. He directly pushed the door open, and with a light shake of his secret power, the door broke. Captain Ling, the 3 guards hurriedly followed in, even more puzzled. Why did you barge into a commoner's home? Ling Han moved out a chair and sat in the courtyard, patiently waiting. The 3 guards were helpless, and could only squat in the corner, accompanying him. At noon, the door creaked open, and a tall man walked in. This man looked to be in his 30s, and his face was full of vigilance. He shouted at Ling Han and the other 3 guards, "Who are you? Why are you barging into my house?" Ling Han smiled faintly, "We are from Sky Marshal Mansion. As for why we are here, don't you know?" "I don't know what you are talking about." The middle-aged man shook his head, "Even if you are from Sky Marshal Mansion, you can't just barge into my house. I didn't do anything wrong, so I want you to leave immediately." Ling Han stood up and walked towards the middle-aged man. The man stepped aside, "Let's go." Ling Han shook his head, "Why do you want to suck people's blood?" The man's face changed. At first, he had thought that Ling Han had come in by accident, but when these words entered his ears, he understood that Ling Han definitely had a reason for his words. But how did Sky Marshal Mansion find him? When he was committing the crime, he was sure that the other party was alone, and there was no way there would be any witnesses. No, he had to silence them. A thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately opened his mouth, revealing 2 rows of ghastly white teeth. He bit down on Ling Han's neck, and his hands also spread out, grabbing at Ling Han's shoulders. He had revealed his true colors so quickly. "Captain Ling, be careful. He's the blood-sucking demon," the 3 guards quickly shouted. For a moment, they didn't even think about how Ling Han found the murderer. Ling Han reached out and, grabbed the man's neck. Under the suppression of his powerful strength, the man couldn't even think of moving. This man was only at the opening aperture realm. Strange. Ling Han used his ocular ability to scan the man, and couldn't help but be surprised. "Where's the blood you sucked? Where did it go?" The man's face was unusually pale, so when Ling Han used his ocular ability to scan him, he found that the blood in this man's body was pitifully little, only a few tenths of a normal person's. To be able to cultivate to the blood transformation realm, one's blood should be incomparably vigorous. How could it be so weak? Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3777. A Beautiful Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han's finger slashed out like a blade, easily cutting open the middle-aged man's skin. Blood seeped out from the wound, as if there was no blood in this person's body. A blood-sucking monster should have a lot of blood in its body. Why did it look like a dried corpse? "Huh!" The 3 soldiers all cried out in surprise, their faces filled with intense shock. This kind of scene wasn't something that could be seen every day. Ling Han lifted the middle-aged man up a bit and said, "Tell me, why did you kill people?" The middle-aged man's expression of fear suddenly changed, and he bared his fangs at Ling Han with a ferocious expression. Ling Han slightly tightened his fingers, and immediately, cracking sounds could be heard. However, the middle-aged man didn't react at all, as if the person Ling Han was pinching wasn't him at all. "Huh! Doesn't it hurt? Do you want to know? Let me bite you once, and you'll understand," said the middle-aged man, his eyes emitting a scarlet light. Ling Han instantly felt a will invading his sea of consciousness, wanting to control him. However, the 3 immortal foundations in his sea of consciousness lightly shook, and the evil will that invaded immediately vanished like smoke in thin air. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. But behind Ling Han, the 3 soldiers all reached out to grab Ling Han's neck. The eyes of these three people turned scarlet. They were being controlled. In terms of quality, Ling Han's immortal foundation could be said to be supreme, so no evil could invade it. However, the three soldiers didn't have such powerful abilities, and were immediately bewitched. Ling Han opened his mouth and spat out a Buddhist incantation. Peng, black smoke rose from the bodies of the three soldiers, and they were instantly annihilated. The eyes of the three immediately recovered. They were all at a loss, and there was even a strong fear in them. Just now, I felt like I was possessed by a ghost. I couldn't control my body at all. No, it was a will that affected me, causing me to completely lose myself. They were terrified. If Ling Han had not dispelled the evil aura, who knew what they would have done? You're actually a descendant of the Buddhist race? The middle-aged man was also shocked. The 6 words Wisdom King mantra was one of the 2 ultimate techniques of the Buddhist path. It was used to purify all living things and purify evil. For him to see it on a youth was truly unexpected. I'm not surprised, Ling Han said with a smile. Brat, don't be too pleased with yourself. It's impossible for you to know anything, said the middle-aged man. Pa. His entire head exploded like a watermelon. White brain matter splattered everywhere, but there was barely any blood. Ling Han instantly opened up a starlight screen, blocking all the filth. However, the 3 soldiers did not have such strength. Caught off guard, they were splashed all over their bodies. Some people had good immunity, while others couldn't. They immediately vomited at the side. Ling Han frowned. This murderer actually self-destructed. Thus, the clues came to an abrupt end. This middle-aged man was indeed the murderer, but why did he suck blood, and where did the blood go? These questions had yet to be answered. Bring him back to the branch, said Ling Han, casually tossing the headless corpse to the ground. Yes, sir. The 3 soldiers hurriedly straightened their bodies and respectfully complied. Ling Han returned to the branch. He had a feeling that the middle-aged man's death was not the end of the bloodsucking incident. On the contrary, it was very likely just the beginning. When the 3 soldiers brought the middle-aged man's corpse back, the entire branch was in an uproar. How could it not be shocking? There had already been 7 bloodsucking cases before, and the time span spanned over half a month. However, no one had solved any of the cases. But when it came to Ling Han, who had just arrived at the branch and didn't have a single soldier under him, he had actually only used a day and a half to solve the case and capture the murderer. Of course, the only flaw was that the murderer had committed suicide. The 13 captains all had dark expressions. The more capable Ling Han was, the more it accentuated their incompetence. F***ck, you clearly already have the clues. Why didn't you bring them along when you were capturing the murderer? Someone immediately went to snitch, saying that Ling Han had no sense of teamwork and only knew how to be a hero. Otherwise, with the other captains, they would definitely be able to capture the murderer alive and not let him commit suicide. And it wasn't just one. The other captains all chimed in, completely ignoring the fact that Ling Han had solved the case. Instead, they used the fact that they didn't capture the murderer alive to criticize him. Most importantly, it was as if Yang Lushing had gone blind, and had severely reprimanded Ling Han. Ling Han sneered. This guy had purposely made things difficult for him on the first day he arrived, making him take over a troublesome case, and even demanding that it be solved within 10 days. Now that he had solved the case, he was making a big deal out of it. He was simply bullying others too much. The other party was still talking, so Ling Han directly turned and left. Ling Han! Ling Han! Yang Lushing roared loudly, but Ling Han acted as if he didn't hear him, and had already walked out. F***ck. He couldn't help but be driven mad, and began to smash things, scaring the guards that wanted to come in to see the situation into retreating one by one. After fuming for a while, he turned on the communication device. Lord Ma, that brat actually solved the murder case. Yes, don't worry, I will definitely make trouble for him, and make him resign obediently and scram back to the hostage manor. All right, I will report to you when it's done. Ling Han rented a courtyard in the vicinity, and then brought the large black dog and perverted pig over from the hostage manor. He logged on to the star web, and sent the address to the Empress. After another half an hour or so, the Empress, Hu Niu, and the milk babies appeared one after another. Lin Luo, Zhu Heng, and the others had already entered into various sects. With their talent, there was definitely no problem in nurturing them as key disciples, and they might even become Dao children in future. Ling Han, Hu Niu, was the first to jump over, and immediately hugged him like a koala. Ling Han broke into a smile. A large part of the reason why he worked so hard was because of these people by his side. They were his motivation. "Hello, Daddy." The 7 milk babies giggled. After so long, they still looked like milk babies, as if they wouldn't grow up. However, their strength improved very quickly, and they all advanced into the extreme level of the foundation building tier, not the slightest bit inferior to Ling Han. Tang Yun, meanwhile, pursed her lips. The appearance of this handsome guy caused the Empress to ignore her. This was too much. The family reunited. Unfortunately, people like Liu Yutong and the others could only be trapped in the inner world. Ling Han believed that when his strength grew a little stronger, even if these people hadn't reached the level of celestial venerable tier, he would still have the ability to send them out safely. This night, the Ling family was a scene of jubilation. Early the next morning, everyone faced the morning sun and cultivated. The Empress, the large black dog, and the others were all about to reach the peak stage of the foundation building tier, and Ling Han just so happened to have a large amount of foundation transformation pills in his possession, which would be enough for them to cultivate the foundation of celestial Tao to the utmost perfection when they broke through. After cultivating, Ling Han logged onto the star web to begin the ranking battles. Reading on his phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3778. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Cece Ling Han originally wanted to challenge Shi Yi and earn another wave of ticket money, but he didn't expect Shi Yi to break through. He was now a cauldron forging expert. Although the star web could suppress one's cultivation level to achieve a relatively fair battle, it was unfair for true geniuses to suppress their own cultivation. If they didn't fight at their own level, it would affect them no matter what. Therefore, Shi Yi rejected his challenge and only told him to break through to cauldron forging as soon as possible to start another great battle. Not only Shi Yi, but myriad Daos and Heavenbreaker also broke through to cauldron forging and didn't want to fight Ling Han at the same level. Fine, if I can't earn this money, then I'll go break records and make some money. Ling Han began to break all sorts of records, be it strength limit, speed limit. As long as it was a record, he would break it. Each time he broke it, he would be rewarded with 1,000 cosmic credits, which added up to quite a lot. He was now at extreme foundation establishment, and his strength was tyrannical to the extreme. He broke almost all the records one by one. Although he hadn't truly battled against the primordial first in the same cultivation level, and hadn't even battled against the myriad Tao and heaven-shattering sword, everyone now agreed that in terms of talent and aptitude, Ling Han was definitely the strongest in all of eternity. Although being the strongest and fastest didn't mean that one's battle prowess was the highest, when one reached the heights of Ling Han and Shi Yi, who was weaker in terms of battle awareness? Ling Han surpassed the trio in all aspects and was definitely the strongest prodigy since the beginning of time. Right now, the entire universe was searching for the 4 of them. Some wanted to take them in as disciples, but there were even more who hoped to capture them and slowly study their secrets. They were so unbelievably monstrous that it was impossible for them to appear out of thin air. Fortunately, Ling Han's group of 4 hid their identities very well. They were clearly famous on the star web, and the entire universe had heard of their names, but no one knew who they really were. For example, Ling Han. Who would have thought that the hostage sent by Xianbei country would be the number 1 under the starry sky, who was even more monstrous than Shi Yi and the others? The next 2 days were very ordinary. Aside from cultivating, Ling Han would concoct alchemical pills, spend time with his wife and children, and watch the large black dog and the perverted pig look at each other in disdain. Although it was simple, it was filled with warmth, causing Ling Han to feel like he wanted to leave everything behind and spend the rest of his life like this. But as soon as this thought flashed through his mind, he immediately shivered. In this world where martial power reigned supreme, how could there be a true tranquil place? Only with absolute strength could he protect the people around him, and only then could he maintain the current peace. But on the fourth day, something happened. Ling Han went to the branch as usual, but he was immediately called to Yang Lusheng's place. Peng, as soon as the other party saw him enter, he slammed the report in his hand on the table, pointed at him angrily, and said, "Ling Han, do you know what the crime of deceiving the emperor is?" Ling Han smiled faintly, sat on the chair, and said, "Don't randomly accuse me." The other party was only at the human crucible level, so he was not afraid. Yang Lusheng suppressed his anger, and said, "Last night, there was another vampire murder, and it was 3 in a row. So, the corpse you brought back is not the murderer at all."
Oh!
Ling Han's eyes lit up. Previously, with the vampire's suicide, all the clues were broken, and many questions were buried. Now there was another vampire murder. Although it was a tragedy, it also meant that he could find new answers. He picked up the murder report and looked at it, and said, "These are 3 new murderers. Why are you so sure that there are 3 people?" Yang Lusheng said. The cause of death of the 3 victims was exactly the same, all of their blood had been sucked out, and it was shockingly similar. Intuition. Ling Han said, "The person you brought back before is definitely the murderer of the previous 8 murders. Now there are 3 new murderers, hehe, what are they hiding behind? Since you've solved the first serial blood-sucking murder case, then I'll leave the other 3 cases to you. I'll give you 3 days. If you can't solve the cases in time, I'll hold you accountable," Yang Lusheng said arrogantly. Ling Han did not speak, and just stared at him, which made Yang Lusheng feel a little uncomfortable. "Lord Yang, don't make a mistake," he said faintly. "You're threatening me." Yang Lusheng was furious. "You're just at the foundation establishment stage, so how can you be so arrogant?" Ling Han smiled, and said, "I'll take this case, and I'll find the murderer within 3 days. It's not because I'm afraid of you, but because I'm interested in it. In the future, whether or not I'll take cases will depend on my mood." After saying that, he swaggered off. Bang, bang, bang. Yang Lusheng began to smash the furniture crazily again. Ling Han immediately went to the homes of the 3 victims. The homes of the 3 victims were about the same distance from him, so Ling Han randomly chose one. When he arrived, he immediately used the jade toad to collect the auras. After eliminating the soldiers, family members, and friends, there were only 3 unfamiliar auras left, and he tracked them one by one. The first one was not. Ling Han shook his head. He used the eye sorcery to take a look, and this person's chi and blood were normal, so he shouldn't be the murderer. Switch. The second person was a middle-aged woman. Ling Han's eyes swept over her, and he immediately launched an attack. Xiao, he instantly appeared in front of her, and struck out with his palm. Not only did he seal her cultivation level, he also sealed her divine sense. This person had pitifully little blood in her body, so she must be the murderer who sucked blood. Ling Han brought the middle-aged woman back to the branch residence, and directly threw her in front of Yang Lusheng. "The murderer has been captured alive, so I'll leave the rest to you." Yang Lusheng's anger still hadn't dissipated, and he looked coldly at Ling Han. "You said she's the murderer, so she's the murderer?" Ling Han shrugged. "You can release her restriction and interrogate her yourself." Yang Lusheng frowned, and then loudly said, "Guards." The soldiers outside immediately came in. "What orders does my lord have?" "Prepare a torture room, and prepare for interrogation." "Yes." 2 soldiers came, dragged the middle-aged woman away, and tied her hands and feet. All the captains were also present. Although they didn't participate in the arrest, if they participated in the interrogation, they would naturally be able to get some credit. After the restriction was released, the middle-aged woman immediately revealed a terrified expression. "Why did you guys capture me? I didn't commit any crime." Ling Han pointed a finger, and the middle-aged woman's left hand instantly exploded, but strangely, only a pitiful amount of blood gushed out. The middle-aged woman immediately looked toward Ling Han, and a cold expression appeared on her face. "It's you again," she said. "Huh?" Ling Han couldn't help but be startled. How did this middle-aged woman recognize him? If it was said that she was in cahoots with the blood-sucking male from before, Ling Han would believe it. However, that blood-sucking male didn't have the slightest bit of contact with the outside world until he self-detonated, so how did this middle-aged woman recognize him? Strange as expected. Cell phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3780. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han activated his eye ability and looked at the old man. He couldn't see through him. If the old man was a foundation establishment cultivator, then Ling Han could see his cultivation level clearly. If he was a caste cauldron, then he could at least vaguely see the appearance of an immortal cauldron. But he couldn't see anything from the birth core stage. It wasn't that his eye ability wasn't strong, but that his cultivation level was too low. But he couldn't see through his eye ability, which meant that the old man was at least at the birth core stage, or even stronger. There was a hole in the old man's chest, as if someone had pierced it with their hand. Blood was still flowing out, but at a very slow rate. Moreover, the blood was crystal-like, as if it was about to solidify. Damn it, I need more blood. The old man coughed and gently caressed his wound. His eyes were filled with killing intent. 5th day Ozi, just wait until I recover from my injuries, find the secret realm, and advance my cultivation to the next level. That will be the day you die. And that damned brat, he actually has a treasure that can track my scent. He almost exposed my hiding place. That brat is quite smart. He should have found this place long ago, but he didn't show himself. Clearly, he knows this is a trap. I have to find another place. If he finds an expert, it won't be easy for me to defend against him since I've just recovered my caste cauldron cultivation. As he muttered to himself, the two blood thralls stood solemnly to the side like statues. You two, help me up, the old man ordered the two blood thralls. The two hurried to help him up. When they helped the old man out of the pit, Ling Han was surprised to find that the old man was still missing a leg. The wound was very fresh, and just like his chest, it was still dripping with blood. Ling Han's heart beat slightly faster. He was wondering if he should take advantage of this opportunity to make a move. This was a very good opportunity. The enemy's ambush had failed and left in disappointment. This was the moment when the defense was at its weakest. The opponent was a caste cauldron. If he suddenly launched a sneak attack with the heavenly rune jade, there was a high chance of success. The question was this another trap? Perhaps the old man already knew that he was nearby and deliberately said those words to attract him to attack. That's not right. If he wanted to lure me into the trap, then he should have said that his cultivation level is in the foundation building tier. Otherwise, with the gap of a major tier, so what if he launched a sneak attack? How many people would be able to succeed? Ling Han immediately said in his mind. After all, a powerful foundation building tier like him was rarely seen throughout the ages. If that old man could also be considered as a foundation building tier, then he would really be freaking awesome. Ling Han muttered to himself. He believed that his judgment was correct. Alright, let's take a gamble. Ling Han took out the heavenly rune jade and infused it with his psyche energy. When he was 15 feet away from the old man, he didn't get any closer. With a thought, the heavenly rune jade shot out. Kill. Ling Han also activated so near, yet worlds apart and charged forward. This was too sudden. Who would have thought that an attack would suddenly appear in an empty space? The heavenly rune jade streaked across the sky at 40 times the speed of sound. The old man couldn't help but be shocked. If he'd been prepared, he could have dodged the attack with his current cauldron forging cultivation. But it was too sudden and too close for him to dodge. The old man was quite ruthless. He grabbed the two blood slaves in front of him and blocked the attack. Bang, bang. The heavenly rune jade smashed into them and immediately exploded. Under the powerful twisting force, the two blood thralls' bodies exploded like popped balloons. The heavenly rune jade's speed only decreased slightly as it continued toward the old man. With a roar, the old man flipped his right hand and slapped at the heavenly rune jade. Bang! There was a burst of blood as the right hand exploded, followed by the forearm. It only stopped when it reached the elbow. Alas, cauldron forging monsters were indeed difficult to kill. The wolf clan's high priest was so, and so was this old man. Ling Han sighed inwardly, but his figure was already upon them. He used the three forms of the war god, enveloped in destructive energy. He had unleashed his strongest battle prowess from the get-go. The old man's heart ached to death. Of course, it wasn't just 2 blood thralls. He could create as many as he wanted, but in order to block Ling Han's attack, he'd lost a right hand. He'd already lost a leg, and now he'd lost an arm. His battle prowess would naturally plummet. Most importantly, the attacker was only a foundation establishment cultivator. He, a spirit transformation true lord, had actually been crippled by a foundation establishment cultivator. If he were still a high and mighty spirit transformation true lord, so what if he'd been ambushed by the heavenly rune jade? A mere low-level artifact would have been child's play to him. Damned pawn, he roared, activating his spirit transformation level aura and charging toward Ling Han. At the same time, he reached out with his left hand, aiming for Ling Han's neck. He really didn't underestimate Ling Han in the slightest, directly using the aura of a spirit transformation tier to suppress Ling Han. This was the greatest advantage of having a higher tier, crushing all living things in terms of tier. However, this kind of aura suppression was useless against Ling Han. His immortal foundation was modeled after an ancient immortal sect and could be said to be the strongest foundation of the immortal Tao in the world. With such a stable foundation, why would he be afraid of aura suppression? The first form of the war god arrived, and Ling Han added another move. He opened his mouth and spat out a golden sword, at the same time activating his baleful aura attack. The baleful aura attack was the first to arrive, but it had no effect. The opponent wasn't a real cast cauldron, but a spirit transformation true lord. The difference in cultivation level was too great, and it was completely ineffective. But Ling Han didn't pin his hopes on that. The third form of the war god and the destructive energy were his trump cards. Boom! The two clashed, and Ling Han was instantly sent flying. He felt all the bones in his body trembling as if they were about to fall apart. The old man had indeed only recovered to the cast cauldron realm, but he wasn't a human cauldron, but a heaven cauldron. Ah! The old man let out a miserable scream. Although he had sent Ling Han flying, his left hand was contaminated with the destructive energy that was currently corroding him. He couldn't expel it with his current strength and could only suppress it. 2 of his fingers instantly disappeared. What terrifying destructive power! The old man was both furious and shocked. He had purposely recalled the 2 blood thralls in order to lure Ling Han into taking the bait and get rid of a hidden danger. Who would have thought that he would bring disaster upon himself? Now, he only had a right leg and a left hand left. His left hand was also missing 2 fingers. It was simply a tragedy. Die! 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 He was completely enraged and crazily attacked Ling Han. This was the battle prowess of a heaven cauldron realm cultivator. It was too terrifying. Although Ling Han blocked it with the third form of the war god, his entire body was sent flying as soon as they came into contact. The starlight barrier instantly shattered. Ooh-wah! Ling Han violently vomited blood. He felt that at least half of his internal organs had been destroyed. This was because he had built a very good foundation. Otherwise, this attack alone would have been enough to kill him. Die! The old man leaped forward with his single leg and attacked Ling Han once again. Reading on mobile phones is more refreshing. Chapter 3781. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Si Siwang, a pagoda appeared above Ling Han's head. Endless chaotic energy scattered down, lightning radiance flickered about, the divine might indescribable. Bam the Elder attacked, a palm pressing down, but it was blocked by chaotic energy, his hand directly sinking. Primal Chaos Paulari's Thunder Tower, Emperor Weapon. However, the old man was still a heaven tripod realm cultivator, so he immediately roared and exerted strength in his limbs to stop his body from sinking. He was shocked. Although he only had the power of the heaven tripod cauldron, he could crush any foundation establishment cultivator. This kind of crushing was not something an artifact could change. Limited by one's realm, even if it was a 4-star or 5-star artifact, the power it could unleash was limited. But why was this chaotic aura able to suppress him and make him stagger? Unless he couldn't help but have a thought. Could this be a saint artifact? Any material that could be made into a sage artifact naturally had an indescribable power. Thus, even in the hands of a low-level cultivator, it could often display a power that surpassed their realm. Give it to me. The elder changed his target and grabbed towards the primal chaos Paulari's thunder pagoda, wanting to forcefully take it away. Kai, lightning flashed chaotically, striking towards the old man. The light was too fast, and even the old man couldn't dodge it. He was struck head-on, and under the surge of electricity, his entire body began to tremble. Even his hair stood on end. How could the might of a monarch weapon be underestimated? Ling Han let out a long howl and took the opportunity to launch a counterattack. That old man was really strong. Even without an arm, a leg, and 2 fingers, he was still able to deliver a palm strike in Ling Han's direction despite the fact that he was numb from the electricity. Peng! The two of them collided. Ling Han let out another WA sound as he violently spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the old man wasn't any better off. His face was completely pale, and the wounds on his chest, elbows, fingers, and legs were all gushing with blood. The old man turned pale with fright. The cultivation technique he practiced was special, and his blood was the source of his energy. This was also the reason why he could use his soul to control those blood slaves when he was seriously injured. A large amount of blood could help him recover faster. However, now that he had lost so much blood, not only would it affect his battle prowess, it might even kill him. He was greedy and angry. How much he wanted to obtain this sacred tool, it was practically a huge waste for it to fall into the hands of a mere foundation establishment cultivator. However, this little foundational cultivator actually wanted to force him into a dead end, which made him extremely angry. He was a perfected Lord Spirit transformation. He could kill this ant in front of him with a single breath. After he recovered from his injuries, he would suck this brat's blood dry and turn him into a corpse slave without any will. The old man beat the drums of retreat, turned around, and was about to escape. But how fast could he run with only one leg? Ling Han activated so near, yet worlds apart, and instantly caught up to him. He threw out a series of attacks, especially the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda. Every strand of chaotic energy was as heavy as a mountain, and every bolt of lightning was incomparably sharp. The old man cried out, but there was nothing he could do. Who asked him to be seriously injured, with only one leg left? Brat, you forced me to do this. The old man gritted his teeth. In the end, he took out his magic tool, a small rattledrum. He bit his lip, and with a puff, he spat out a mouthful of blood onto the rattledrum. Yi, you're clearly covered in blood, so why did you bite yourself? Ling Han asked, puzzled. Right. The old man was also startled. Why did I bite my own tongue? Although his magic tool required fresh blood to activate, wasn't he bleeding all the time right now? What a loss. He was extremely depressed. He had actually been made a joke of by a minor character. He had lost all his face. Die. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. Whatever, as long as he killed this brat, all of his humiliation would vanish. Boom, under his full power, the rattledrum immediately rang out. Bang. One sound after another rang out, directly hitting Ling Han's heart. Blood immediately flowed out of his orifices. This was originally a spirit transformation tier treasured tool, and if it used its full power, Ling Han would instantly turn into a puddle of blood. However, the old man was currently heavily injured, and was unable to use its full power. Moreover, he himself was aware of the pain, because once this treasured tool was activated, it would endlessly absorb his chi and blood. Normally, it wouldn't matter. He could just suck other people's blood, but right now, he had lost too much blood. How could he withstand this kind of torment? He could easily die. That was why he wanted to escape first, but was forced into a dead end. That was why he was willing to risk his life. Bang! The old man shook the rattledrum. He was not much better off. His face became even more pale. It was no longer bloodless, but like white wax. Damn, I'm going to die. Wang, the primal chaos polarity thunder tower emitted endless primal chaos chi, which could greatly weaken the destructive power of the sound of the spirit tool. Ling Han also roared the 6 words Wisdom King incantation within his body. Although that sound wasn't evil, but purely destructive power, using sound to break sound should still be somewhat useful. Ling Han gave a loud shout, and used the demon monkey fist. Endless ruthlessness circulated, and with a punch, colorful splendor rippled. It was as if the whole world had turned into endless darkness. Only a single punch shot out, and even if the sky was filled with stars, it would still be shattered with a single punch. When the sacred Battle King used it, it would definitely have the power to shatter stars with one punch. However, in the hands of Ling Han, it was only a kind of momentum. But even if it was just a momentum, it also caused the old man to turn pale with fright. This was a real emperor technique. The punch flew out, and the old man was instantly hit in the chest. Fortunately, it was not the original wound. Otherwise, this punch would probably have taken his life. The old man was thrown back 300 feet. He looked down and saw that there was another dent in his chest. At least 3 ribs had been broken by this punch, causing his chest to cave in. What kind of treasure was this? It was too terrifying. The power of one punch could actually reach such a level. Sage technique, it must be a sage technique. This kid's luck was heaven-defying. He had obtained the inheritance of a sage, so he was using a sage tool to punch a sage technique. The old man's eyes were red. He wanted to fight with his life. The inheritance of a sage was worth the risk. Go die. He shook the rattle drum even more intensely. Yuan continuously sucked away what little qi and blood he had left. Not only did his body lose its color, but it was also shriveling up, as if he had turned into a skeleton. This treasure was really evil. It couldn't have been forged by the old man himself. Otherwise, there must be something wrong with this old man's brain. The chaotic Paulari's Thunder Tower was above Ling Han's head, and he was chanting the 6 words Wisdom King mantra to resist the attack of this treasure. Although he was still bleeding from his orifices, his body was full of vitality, and he was far from dying from the shock. A few minutes later, "I'll seek your whole family," the old man said unwillingly. His whole body was already like a dried corpse. He was actually being sucked to death by his own treasure. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3782. A Good Romance. BQG 6. See Sither Elder fell to the ground. A spirit transformation perfected Lord actually died in the hands of a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator because he was seriously injured. He died with everlasting regret. His eyes were still wide open, and there was even a hint of greed in them. He was probably still thinking about the sage's inheritance before he died. If he knew that it was not the sage's inheritance but a sovereign weapon and sovereign art, who knew how heartbroken he would be? Ling Han also sat down on the ground. The Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Tower automatically retracted and entered the space between his eyebrows. The natal artifact could be stored in the body. This battle was really fatal. He bled from all 7 orifices, and his internal organs were mostly destroyed. He would lose at least a dozen years of life. No wonder those in the Foundation Establishment realm could live for 1,000 years and those in the Hinayana realm could live for 40,000 years. That was because they would inevitably suffer heavy injuries in battle, which consumed their life essence. Even if they recovered from their injuries, the hidden injuries would still remain, which was irreparable. Unless he could take a sacred medicine and recover his body to perfection. Ling Han swallowed a healing alchemical pill and circulated the Heaven Ancient Yang scroll. After quite a while, he finally managed to suppress the boiling in his body. His damaged internal organs had already begun to recover under the nourishment of the medicinal effects and the mystical power, but it would still take a few days for him to completely recover. At this moment, the elder's body suddenly lit up. What the hell? A corpse coming back to life? Ling Han was already prepared to use the Heaven Dao fire. With his current state, he would definitely not be able to defeat a caste tripod realm cultivator. Wang, the rattle drum floated up on its own. Xiao, it broke through the air and flew away. Huh? Ling Han didn't understand. It was impossible for a magic artifact to fly away on its own after losing its owner's control. Before he finished his thought, a ball of light suddenly appeared beside the elder's body. It kept moving as if it wanted to transform into something, but it didn't take shape. "How dare you ruin my plans, Ant?" A voice came over. It was at the level of divine senses. Ling Han was shocked and instantly understood. The rattledrum magic artifact belonged to the owner of the voice. He didn't know why it was given to the elder to use. Now that the elder was dead, the owner of the voice took it back and even manifested a wisp of thought to threaten him. "He, afraid of you?" With a thought, Ling Han threw a stone over. However, his divine sense was formless, and the stone passed through the light and shadow. How daring! That was clearly a supreme expert, able to manifest his will in some unknown corner of the cosmos. Perhaps he was even more powerful than a sect master. Peng, the reply he got was an even bigger rock. It passed through the light and shadow and smashed heavily onto the ground, causing sand to fly into the air. Good. 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 That expert was probably about to explode from anger. He was speechless. Peng, an even bigger rock came crashing down, directly landing on the old man's corpse. Just like that, even the ball of light was no longer visible. But a moment later, that ball of light floated out of the stone. "You're dead." That supreme expert coldly transmitted his divine sense over. However, the ball of light dissipated as soon as it finished speaking, as if it was afraid that Ling Han would throw another stone at it. He had never seen such a hothead, causing that expert to feel helpless. Ling Han smiled faintly. He was naturally not afraid. If that expert could make a move, he wouldn't have wasted so much time talking. He would have directly captured or killed him. Obviously, the other party was too far away and could only play with words. He rested for a while and stabilized the injuries in his body. Then, he stood up. With a thought, the stone on the old man's corpse was taken away by his thought power. On the ground, the old man's corpse did not suffer any damage. To be able to cultivate to the spirit transformation realm, his bones and skin were naturally extremely tough. At the very least, it was not something that could be crushed by a rock. Even if it was crushed under a mountain, it would not necessarily be damaged. Ling Han searched the old man's corpse and found a spatial magic tool. There were not many things inside, just 100 or so Dao stones and a thin metal plate. This metal material was unknown. It was incomparably thin, and there was a picture on it that looked like a map. To be collected by a spirit transformation true monarch, it should not be simple. Ling Han thought about it, then put away the thin plate. He would slowly study it in the future. Apart from this, there was nothing else. How poor. What spirit transformation true monarch, how wretched. Ling Han could also guess that most of the old man's wealth should be in the star web, in the form of universe coins. Without a doubt, with his death, this wealth would belong to the Chang family. In this world, who knew how many people died every day? Their wealth in the star web would naturally be collected by the Chang family. There was no need to write it off. Universe coins were virtual. So what if the Chang family issued trillions or trillions? It would not affect them at all. Only when the universe coins were exchanged for Dao stones would the Chang family take it out. Sigh, the Chang family really made a fortune. Ling Han sighed once again. The 4 great emperors had left a golden rice bowl for their descendants. It was also fortunate that the Chang family was an emperor clan. Otherwise, even a holy land would not be able to protect such a large amount of wealth. After sighing, Ling Han brought the old man's corpse back. After arriving at the branch, he brought the corpse to Yang Lusheng and threw it on the ground. He said, "Here, this is the true culprit behind the blood-sucking case." Yang Lusheng did not care about Ling Han's attitude. He only glanced at the old man, and all the pores on his body could not help but close. This was an expert who far surpassed him. The remaining power of a tiger's death was still there, and it made him tremble. How is this possible? He finally opened his mouth. His face was full of shock. He looked at Ling Han with deep fear in his eyes. Ling Han had actually killed such an expert. Look, the battle was too intense. The old man had lost an arm and a leg, and there was a see-through hole in his chest. This could not have been caused by a sneak attack. From this, it could be seen how exaggerated Ling Han's strength was. Oh my God! You killed him, he said with a trembling voice. He thought that he was stupid to actually make an enemy of such a powerful person. Ling Han smiled. I did kill him, but when I found him, he was already seriously injured and only had the strength of the Foundation Establishment realm. I took advantage of him. He had suppressed the old man's strength by 1 level. Otherwise, a Foundation Establishment realm killing a Cauldron Caste realm was unheard of, and he would probably be captured for research. Now that a Foundation Establishment realm martial artist had the battle strength of a Foundation Establishment realm martial artist, there was no problem. He was originally the strongest Foundation Establishment realm martial artist in the Azure Dragon Empire. Yang Lusheng finally let out a sigh of relief and then felt a little awkward. He was actually scared by a Foundation Establishment realm martial artist. He coughed and pretended to be dignified. How do you know that he is the true culprit of the bloodsucking case? We will know after asking an expert to examine the corpse. Ling Han said indifferently, I also killed 2 blood slaves, but I don't know how many people this old man has bewitched. He is now dead, and the divine spirit control should have lost its effect. Even if there are other blood slaves, they should have recovered by now. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,